Okay, good morning, everyone. Mike and Corey here today on December 18th. As far as some interesting topics in the news, if you happen to drive a Nissan, which would be pretty rare, or a Honda, which would be much more common, they are talking about a possible merger. So I'm gonna address that. We'll see what the stocks are thinking about that, about their companies, and then I'm going to talk about a big Fed meeting later today, talking about interest rate cuts. It's just exciting to, for it to come out, but really the news will be tomorrow and the results of that. And then Corey's going to talk about what the Dow's done the last several days. I know, a lot of times they want to print headlines and they'll say the Dow's down, down, down. The Nasdaq could be up, which is more important to me. But there's a lot of focus on the Dow, and so Corey's going to talk about that. So this is a financial education presentation. You must do your own due diligence on anything that you hear in this presentation. More disclaimer information can be found on ankerstarwealth.com, and the opinions expressed are mine and Corey's alone. So I'll start with, what kind of car do you drive? Corey, what kind of car do you drive?
A Ford truck.
A Ford. And hey,
Yeah.
my wife works for Ford, so we definitely have Fords. But I will tell you that, with multiple teens and a wide variety of cars, we've got some Fords, we got an older Cadillac, and we have a Subaru, and then I actually have a Tesla from 5 years ago when they weren't, maybe they were cooler
Man,
back then.
so you're into vehicle diversification over there.
That's right, yeah, and also fuel diversification, because I can tell you my wife's Ford is a V8 and it burns gas, and mine just, I care very much about the environment, saving it. So no, it gets electrical. So, and then all of my kids complain about the cost of gas. So, but we do not own a Nissan or a Honda, although when I was car shopping, I did look closely at some Honda hybrid Accords and things like that. Back 5 years ago, the Tesla appealed more to me. So let's go into this news. It says a blockbuster Nissan Honda merger. Now, it's been a while since I've had a Nissan Altima as my rental vehicle. And I'm certainly familiar with the Nissan Maxima, although I think it required premium fuel. I don't think of Nissan as being a major car sales in the United States. I have no idea in Japan. Maybe they're more competitive with Honda and Toyota over there. Nissan's one of those ones like, oh yeah, I guess they're still around. I just don't see them that much. I do think of Honda as being a major player, Honda and Toyota as being the two big Japanese ones in the United States. So when they talk about a merger, why is that? Well, there's so many different kinds of automotive manufacturers, and obviously Tesla is the I shouldn't say it's the newest, because there's been 10 newer ones, but it's the newest successful one. And all these other companies are, the older companies are figuring out how to compete, how to go to electrical. I mean, I know Honda already had hybrid. I don't know about Nissan. So when they talk about this merger, sometimes I think it's just necessity. You can't have all these competitors developing the same technologies. Makes much more sense to combine. So Nissan and Honda are talking about this. They have not done this. They're exploring it. So why, I explained kind of why, but there's so much of it related to full electrification. So it's really the competitors to Tesla, right? I mean, I know there's a bunch of other ones, but these are the major competitors that they've already have the footprint to sell these vehicles. So what happens when a companies talk about this, they call it a mega merger. See, look at this likelihood of political scrutiny in Japan. So I don't know there's as much political scrutiny in the United States. But when you have a merger like this, you can look at the stock prices and you can figure out who the buyer is, like who really owns the merger, and that is Honda. So you can see Honda's stock is down 3% today, but look at right at the top, 52-week low. So that means Honda's not been doing well. You can see the stock graph. It's a house of pain. It's probably sold off by a third just this year on a market that's, it's been a great year so far. So guess what? It's time to explore other things. Nissan on the other side is the acquired one. Stock is down significantly, almost 50% on the year, but it jumped up 24% on this possibility that they would be, I'm going to say, acquired. They may call it a merger, but Honda would be acquiring Nissan, and that's why that stock is up. Now, if this deal falls through, then you'd expect you're going to see the stock drop right away. So anyways, it's interesting. I would expect, just like we saw with the airlines over the last 20 years when there's been different mergers, Northwest and Delta comes to mind. I know there's been some other ones that went out and were acquired. We're going to see the same thing in the automotive world. I do believe that mergers and acquisitions are a good thing. It makes a company more competitive with as far as cost. So it's a good thing. And then the other piece of news that I wanted to cover is, today is the big.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, I don't know if you were following any of those new vehicle, electric vehicle companies the past few years, but this weekend I saw a Fisker Ocean driving down the road. Was that one that you had heard about these last couple of years?
I've heard of Fisker. I have not seen one. Of course, there's Rivian, there's Lord's Motor.
Yeah.
There's.
Well, Fisker, so kind of a cool concept and cool product, but not a sustainable business. So they filed bankruptcy this year, and they gave up all future software updates. I mean, the whole thing closed down. Well, and the software that was on that the cars were running had a lot of issues, even issues with key fobs and things, just basic things not working. So, the guy that I see driving a Fisker Ocean, it's like, man, you've only got one shot at that thing, right?
Yeah, I mean,
if it breaks down.
So this is where Tesla, I believe, is in an interesting place. If Tesla is only evaluated on automotive, like the actual hardware, then it should be priced like an automotive company, and therefore it'd be way overvalued at this point. But if, say, a Tesla becomes the software deliverer for other electric vehicle manufacturers, that's where Tesla would have an advantage. So, now, is it easy? I'm sure for Tesla to just replace using their software and replace it for Fisker. I'm sure it's not that easy. But if they could get in that and kind of had modules of take like the self-driving. If they become the self-driving software company, that's where there's an advantage. So, I just wonder when all these companies come out, like who would buy, somebody obviously, bought a Fisker. But if I was going to buy a vehicle, which is a very expensive thing to buy, I want to know that there's support, there's a dealership or a place I can take it to be repaired. There's parts that are made for it, and that's where you feel safe with a Honda or Nissan or Toyota or any of the normal ones. But these new ones, it's kind of like you feel like you're taking a chance. So I don't know.
Yeah, and you think about a Rivian who isn't profitable, or I don't believe that Lucid has reached profitability. So you just think, as a consumer, you want to be mindful of that. And Tesla's obviously reached profitability and sustainability in their business model, so you could feel very, very comfortable owning one of their products. But just on my street, Mike, it's interesting. We got another person in our neighborhood. They bought a Fisker, and I haven't seen them driving that. So we'll see if that ever comes out of the garage. But we've got a few Cybertrucks. We've got quite a few Rivians on our street. So I mean, they're out there.
Well, I mean, hey, I'll take buying new vehicles as a sign of good consumers spending in the United States, which is a good lead-in to this interest rate decision coming today. So the Fed will be deciding whether they cut another quarter point. Like I said, I think yesterday or the day before, I think it's projected like a 90% chance they're going to cut. That's what they believe is going to happen. Although I've seen that more be like 60% of the people think they should cut. And that means there's 40% that think let's wait. As long as consumer spending continues to go on and the economy doesn't, essentially slow down too much, we're overall the stock markets will be in a good place. This is one of those danger things too, where, I think today's going to be very normal. We'll certainly report out on it tomorrow, but it's more what the Fed says along with it. They'll come out with what they call their dot plot, which means they'll project out their future cuts into 2025. That's where the market may react today. You may see a reaction around 2 o'clock today based on what Powell says. I don't know that anything they do today is going to change anything. So anyways, I just kind of put that out there in case you see the stock markets, I hate to say it, I think it's unlikely they're going to jump up, but I guess in case you see the stock market sell off for some reason, it's based on this meeting. So with that, Corey, talking about things selling off, let's talk about the Dow.
Yeah, interesting headline yesterday that the Dow had its longest first 9-day losing streak since 1978.
Wow.
The Dow Jones. So just real quick, and I know Mike's hit this before too, but it's a price weighted index. So the higher your stock price, the higher weighting you have in the index. United Health was #1 for a while, and after the month they've had, they are #2. Goldman Sachs is in the top spot now. But just looking at these weightings, so you can see that like Verizon's in the Dow. Okay, does Verizon move the Dow? No. You're really getting pushed around by Goldman Sachs. So let's go one step over here. Where you're getting pushed around sector-wise. You've got financial exposure, information technology exposure, healthcare exposure, and consumer discretionary and industrials. Those are your kind of top industry exposures there, or sector exposures. Let's look at so then we've got the industries labeled here. Goldman Sachs in the past month, Goldman Sachs, as many financial companies did, they exploded higher after the election, the day after the election, with the hope that there would be less regulation and opportunities for those companies. Ever since then, those companies haven't done much, just been sitting flat. Goldman Sachs has trended down just a little bit. It's up 50% this year. Amazing performance, but again, just in the past month on this kind of 9-day losing streak there. United Health Group, there's a lot of negative sentiment out there around anything healthcare. We covered on the show a couple weeks ago, healthcare is at its lowest relative performance compared to the S&P 500 since 2008. So, unheard of weakness there. Microsoft peaked back in the summer. Hasn't been doing too much recently. It's trended up a little probably in the last month, but again, it peaked in the summer. Home Depot, Caterpillar, really Home Depot and Sherwin-Williams, anything housing related has been under pressure, particularly in December. And I was kind of looking at why that is, and I was curious, Mike, if you had heard any thesis around that. I have heard there's a little bit of inventory buildup out there. I did see that mortgage rates bottomed on December 6th, and as far just recently, of course, and have gone up, on like a 6-day winning streak there for mortgage rates. So not good for consumers. So I don't know if some of that is pricing into any of these housing related stocks. But again, why are we seeing this weakness in the Dow? It's a price weighted index, and the big dogs in the Dow, who somewhat reflect parts of the U.S. economy, have been under pressure.
Yeah,
and
I'd say
have there been some bad earnings? No, but it's just sentiment changes quickly, right? And it can change again quickly.
Yeah, I'd say the Dow 30, which it served a purpose certainly for tracking the economy and gives us, hundreds, 100 years back to look at. It's kind of irrelevant. I mean, I see the headlines too. Oh, the Dow's down 9 days in a row, longest since 1978. It's like, oh, that like grabs your eyes. But now if you told me the Nasdaq was down 9 days in a row, and I'd be like, well, then let me look a little more, concerning. The problem is with that price weighting. You got an Apple who is a massive important company, and I'm not saying Caterpillar's not an important company, but it's treated more. It has more weight on the Dow than Apple does, and Apple, say the S&P, Apple's probably 10 times bigger than Caterpillar, just off the top of
Yeah,
my head, something like
I
that.
think at this point, there's no doubt we're in a service-based economy. And if you look at some of those top companies in the Dow, they're not as service-based as an Apple, right? Obviously, Microsoft is and things like that.
And I think just recently they dropped Dow Chemical from the Dow 30. So, let's rename it the Goldman Sachs. I don't care. Pick something else. People are gonna be like,
Hey,
what's the Dow? Oh yeah, that's just that old number.
and just important to note on that, yeah, the Dow wasn't in a deep drawdown, and I think the S&P was less than 1% from an all-time high yesterday. So no contagion.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Thanks, everybody. We'll have more on the Fed rate cut tomorrow, I'm sure, and whatever else news comes out. Have a good one. Thanks, everybody. Bye.